So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm Christine Harding with the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation, and we welcome you to our cybersecurity chat. Today, we're going to learn a little bit, or you're going to learn a little bit about Bitcoin. Our cybersecurity guest speaker today is Tim Carver. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science and Electronics Engineering and a Master's of Science in Computer Science, and is ABD on his PhD. So perhaps he'll even talk to us about all those initials. He's going to talk to you today about Bitcoin. Basically, he's going to talk to you about examining the protocol used to secure transfer of funds over the web and how new Bitcoin comes into existence. So Tim, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Is Bitcoin just an idea? No, Bitcoin is a reality. It has been around since about 2009. About 2013, January 2013, I am a digital forensic examiner. I help police every now and then with looking at computers to try to find evidence of guilt, evidence of innocence, or no evidence at all. And there was a posting, does anybody know anything about Bitcoin and the deep web? And so I responded, wound up with some evidence, and found that there was very little information. So I decided to research it. Since that time, I've helped out with a number of cases, and I've learned quite a bit. So I'm going to share some of that with you. So yes, Bitcoin is a reality. It was, when I first started working with it, you could purchase a single Bitcoin. And keep in mind, there's nothing tangible. There's no physical token of any kind that represents a Bitcoin. If somebody walks up to you, they got a gold coin with a $ and a B on it, like what you see on the screen, that's not a real Bitcoin. Do not give them hundreds or thousands of dollars, okay? It actually is using computer protocols, just rules for communications, that's all a protocol is, to share, quote unquote, Bitcoin from one computer to another. Let's take a look at this just a little bit here. It is a form of currency. It is indeed virtual. There's nothing that's actually transferred, from your computer to another person's computer. You can't just copy a file and send that and make another copy and send that to pay things. That's not how it works. Bitcoin also is not what's called a fiat currency. There is no government that backs the Bitcoin. This kind of is a little confusing. Bitcoin is unlike cash money. If you have something that I want to buy and we come to an agreement that whatever it is worth $10. Oh, you can't see it because of the virtue thing. Sorry about that. In either case, I'll hand you the $10. You hand me the item. We have made the purchase. In a Bitcoin transaction, I will use my cell phone or my computer to transfer to your cell phone or your computer a quantity of Bitcoin. Now, these are stored in a global ledger. There are literally millions of people around the world who hold onto this ledger. This ledger is updated about once every 10 minutes. If you don't have your computer on for a couple of days and log back in, your computer will be updated. That's just the nature of Bitcoin. It's how we're able to have this global ledger. I would transfer from one of my addresses called accounts, or call it from my accounts called addresses, and goes to one of yours. Now, again, there's nothing that actually transfers from my computer to your computer. This is done using peer-to-peer protocols. And again, protocols just a rule for communications. If you play video games, you're playing against someone else at their home, other side of the street or the other side of the world. You are using what are called peer-to-peer protocols, person to person. These same protocols are used for Bitcoin as well. Now, Bitcoin transactions can be almost completely anonymous. And I say almost because it's about 99.9% anonymous. The 0.1 that you can possibly trace is usually because of user error. If you follow all the steps properly, you use the software properly, there are people who would love to figure out how to trace purchases back to an individual. We've been working on that for about 7 years or longer without any luck. Now, keep in mind that although the identity of who's purchasing is hidden, the actual transaction everybody sees. Okay, so if I send you $5 worth of Bitcoin and that winds up on your machine and in your quote unquote wallet, you will wind up being able to spend that, use it as you want, but nobody knows who you are. Everybody knows that that account winds up with that $5 worth of Bitcoin, but nobody knows who you are. If I send it, who I am, is very strong anonymous currency. And along that line, it is like cash. You go out to a flea market, you walk up to somebody, they have something there that you like, small digital camera because you want to have some more special fun than what your cell phone can give you. And you give the person $20, they give you a cell phone. They don't know you, you don't know them, transaction is done. So along that line, Bitcoin is like regular cash. These are decentralized transactions. There's no bank. There's no government that backs the Bitcoin. This means no consumer protection. Now, if you want that, God gave us credit cards. So if you made a purchase or someone has stolen your identity and is racking up charges on your credit card, you have something to fall back on. If you get home with that camera we just talked about and it doesn't work, sorry. You go back the next week, the person wasn't set up to sell things at the flea market, whatever. You're out of luck. Along that line, Bitcoin is also along the lines of cash. Every transaction relies on a level of trust, again, just like cash. Now, Bitcoin is considered a cryptocurrency, not just cash or regular currency. It's a form of money which uses cryptologic algorithms for its security. An algorithm is just a set of steps you take to solve a problem. Good example, take a look at the back of a cake box. Okay, you're going to buy, you want to make some cake, you go over to Walmart or wherever, you buy a box of cake mix. On the back are instructions. You follow those steps, you get cake. It's an algorithm. Okay, a series of steps to solve a problem. Bitcoin uses cryptologic algorithm, encoding and decoding, in which to take care of the security. Now, who uses Bitcoin? Some young gentleman. He goes by the name of the Dread Pirate Roberts, but his real name is Ross Ulbricht. And Ross is, he is the first person well publicized arrested, tied to a website called the Silk Road. Now, the Silk Road is an online marketplace. Unfortunately, a lot of what they sell is illegal. As you can see on the screen, you can buy seeds, cuttings, yes, garden supplies is nice. Drugs? Wait a second. And if you take a look down here, you have cannabis cutting, freshly rooted female. Let's see, peyote. There was something else I thought was here, which also is illegal. Sure, it's legal to buy flower pots and such, but unfortunately people were doing a lot more. They're buying drugs and guns and such. So Ross was arrested for running this website and basically selling drugs, selling criminal services, because you could hire a hitman on the Silk Road. If you go out and Google it today, you're not going to be able to get to it. It is on what's called a dark net, and it's on what's called the deep web. What you find on Google, what you find on Yahoo, that's all part of the clear web, easy to find. The deep web, that's about 90% of the internet, okay? And there are government agencies who use it for legitimate purposes. There are businesses that use it for legitimate purposes. NASA uses it for transferring of data from a satellite perhaps to a researcher, but also can be used for illegal purposes. And again, unfortunately, Ross was using this to sell drugs. How does Bitcoin work with the Silk Road? Somewhere along the line, the buyer exchanges currency for Bitcoin. There are a number of ATM machines that are around the world now. This is a worldwide currency. If you were to go to, I'm going to use downtown Indianapolis, Indiana as an example. There are Bitcoin ATM machines that you can go and you show a QR, a little square box that will read a website or information, and you show this to a camera, you feed in $20 bills and convert it over to Bitcoin and give it to your account. So that's one way that you can buy Bitcoin. Those Bitcoin then can be posted at the Silk Road. You find something you want to buy. Okay, so you're the buyer there in the lower left-hand corner. You want to get something legit, we'll say a bunch of flower pots. So you make the purchase. Those Bitcoin are held in escrow. In other words, they're sitting no longer in your account, but not in an account for the seller until the transaction is confirmed and everything is, on the up and up. Basically, we're just waiting for the seller to say, okay, we're going to do this deal. The Silk Road took a small percentage. The vendors paid from that escrow. Hopefully he or she sends the product to the person making the purchase. And when the person wants to cash out their Bitcoin, they can, one, sell to one of these ATM companies. Two, they can sell through another means entirely, but they can get their money back again. So you do have a way of going from regular currency to Bitcoin, make purchases, Bitcoin back to legitimate cash, which is a very bad way of putting it because Bitcoin is not considered illegal as much as it is just unconventional at this time. That'd be a better way of putting it. Now, so who else uses Bitcoin? Overstock uses it. Microsoft, Dell. You could buy a Dell monitor with Bitcoin. CVS Pharmacy, Subway. I was surprised when I read that. You can buy food from Subway. Victoria's Secret. We already know Victoria's Secret. She uses Bitcoin. Virgin Galactic. I've paid my cell phone because I use Virgin for my cell phone. I've paid my bill using Bitcoin. Expedia for travel. Gift. I trade Bitcoin and gift. They're gift card businesses, so you can use Bitcoin to purchase cards for use at Amazon, Target, Walmart, Starbucks, and other businesses. And this is from a presentation I did in Albany. Small businesses in Albany, a garden supply business, a dentist accepts Bitcoin, a cafe and creamery in Auburn uses Bitcoin. This place also has a Bitcoin ATM, so they can be in legitimate businesses. They can be in somewhat questionable businesses. The one in Indianapolis I was thinking of, they're actually in one of the cigar shops there, which there's not that many left, unfortunately, but again, we'll leave that be. Ronald McDonald House charities will accept Bitcoin. Basically, anybody who wants to use it can use it. Now, who created Bitcoin? This is a point of some question for the years. This was actually a paper that came out in 2008, this proposal for an online currency. The person or persons who signed it, okay, who said this is our signed it, Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't really know who Satoshi is. There have been a number of guesses over the years. There have been some people who come forward and claimed to be Satoshi, but have not proven so. The way that they could prove it is that there's a number of Bitcoin that we know Satoshi started, and those have been left untouched. So the currency could go and continue on. So again, we have no idea who this person is or these people are. We have ideas, but nobody knows in reality. Now, how does this work? I teach a couple of courses in cryptology and cryptology and history. I spend 2 semesters, a college year, teaching all the stuff necessary. So on the very last day of class, I can tie it all together. We don't have that kind of time. This is going to be a very short explanation so you have an idea of what we're talking about. You have Alice, who wants to purchase a pair of socks made and sold by Bob. She found Bob on the Silk Road. Again, they sell legitimate stuff, not much, but they do, and obviously Bob has a business selling socks. Both Alice and Bob agree to use Bitcoin. Now, the socks are going to cost 0.00059 Bitcoin, otherwise referred to as 5,900 Satoshis. Because Bitcoin, right now, as of today, they are worth roughly 17 grand a piece. And when I got started on this, I was going to drop $100 and buy 5. Boy, I could kick myself right now. That would be worth somewhere around $85,000. something like that. I could use it, but yeah, that'll get me out of debt real nice. I digress again. The stocks will cost this much, roughly $10. Now, the idea was with Bitcoin originally that it would grow over time in value. And so that's why they needed these smaller quantities discussed. Much like with our dollar currency, we have smaller versions of our paper money. We have quarters, dimes, nickels, and pennies, which are smaller parts of the dollar bill. Because we're dealing with math, we can say 0.00059 Bitcoin or 5,900 Satoshis, or about $10. And as the price of Bitcoin continues to rise, we are going to wind up with each individual Satoshi starting to be worth more. Both Alice and Bob have installed Bitcoin software on their devices. Alice has Bitcoin Core on her PC. Bob installed Bitcoin Wallet on his cell phone. Alice sends Bob a source address. This is where she's going to be sending the Bitcoin from. Bob sends, okay, I want the money to go here. And these are referred to as Bitcoin addresses. What they really are part of a public-private key system. And these are public keys, as they were, that people can use in this manner. And we just basically refer to them as addresses because only I can access my accounts as indicated by these addresses. Nobody else can because I'm the only person who has the key. Now, each address represents a public key, and on Bob's cell phone and on Alice's computer, each of these people have wallets, which have a number of these addresses. Now, using Bitcoin Core software on a computer, Alice is going to send Bob the requested amount of Bitcoin. The transaction is generated on Alice's computer, stored as a message. The message is hashed, and the hash is signed with Alice's private key. We're going to talk about this in a moment. The message, hash, and public key are sent to all of the other users of Bitcoin. And that's that global ledger we're talking about. Because the message can only have come from Alice's wallet, anybody can verify the transaction because they can use that address to decode the message and make sure it matches the hashing value. So we'll talk again about this in just a moment. Again, this means that every Bitcoin transaction is public knowledge. And this reason why this ledger continues to grow so much, because everybody has a copy. The transactions, again, are public. The actual users are unknown. If you were to take this address, if you would take it and Google it, it will take you to a site where a person offers information on how to play a specific game. And you send a little Bitcoin to him, and he will help you to overcome a level in whatever game that it is. But nobody knows who he really is or she really is. Nobody knows even that for sure. Everybody sees the address, not the name. And that's why Bitcoin is considered anonymous. So Alice sent these 5,900 Satoshis from her address. She had 0.001 Bitcoin in that address. Now the change from that is she's paid out that amount to Bob. There's money left over that goes into a new account in her wallet. And because every transaction gets a new address in the wallet, as long as you don't repeat that address using one, previous one, you are guaranteed a pretty good amount of anonymity. And again, that change, quote unquote, goes into another account as we show here, 1LG, yada, yada, yada. And that becomes your new active address, the address that's going to be able to send out money. This idea of never using a wallet address twice makes Bitcoin transactions nearly impossible. Bob waits patiently, anywhere from several minutes to several hours until the transfer is verified and added to the ledger. That's called the blockchain. And adding a transaction fee usually speeds the transfer. So if you want things to go just a little faster, throw in a couple extra pennies. Okay. Instead of paying out $10 in Bitcoin, pay out $10.02 because those all get added together and thrown in with for the miners who actually, quote unquote, create new Bitcoin. We're going to get into a little bit of math. Before we go any further, does anybody have any questions? Christine, did you get anything while I've been going on here?
What are the risks of Bitcoin transactions made public, to what you were just speaking about? Are there risks of using Bitcoin since their transactions are made public?
Only if you are doing something illegal and you are able to be identified. Legal transactions in the United States, you can buy anything legally that you can with cash. If you want to try and drive down to the shall we say bad part of town and buy a little baggie of something a little green inside that's not oregano, well, you can do that, but it's illegal. And because I would imagine if somebody's doing that, maybe there's somebody taking photographs, somebody with a badge perhaps. That's one way to get in trouble. But that's what made the Silk Road so successful, because people were able to get around being identified by their address. So the main danger is that you make a mistake when you're doing something illegal, and there is an investigation going on that you are now caught up in.
Okay. And then we did get another question as well. If it's a tangible product they are buying, doesn't that have to be shipped to an actual address and therefore traceable, for example? I work, again, with law enforcement. I get called in on cases, and I get to ask these guys questions, and ladies as well. I put that question, well, if I was to order something, how am I going to get it? Because it's going to go to an address. And what they tell me is that an address is usually chosen for a home that's not being used for a period of time. People are out on vacation, perhaps. And so it's known that they're gone. They'll have a package sent there and packages left on the doorstep. Now, as you've heard about porch pirates who go up and they take packages away from porches, well, there are people who will go on I was going to say the Silk Road, but the Silk Road, the fourth version of it's been shut down, but there are other sites that are doing it. They order something illegal. They have it sent to that house, that the family is gone for a couple of weeks. Okay, well, 4 days in, there's a package on the doorstep. They go pick up the package and they're gone. Where I was at that time, there was a number of vacation homes near my college. And 9 months out of the year, those buildings are empty for the most part. So that would be another way. Just find a place that's either vacant or is not being used for a period of time. You have it sent there and just go sweep it up and travel. Unless the person who's selling is either cooperating with the law or is the law, the chances, again, of getting caught are slim. Thank you. Those are the two that we had thus far.
Okay. Bitcoin, like almost everything else in life, uses math to do its job. Now, the math involved is used in hashing, public key cryptography. I can't get words out today. Terrible curse for a lecturer. Public key cryptography and peer-to-peer protocols. And these are all based on one main powerful math function. Just one of those things that's just so complicated that you just want to rip your hair out. I mean, that's why I'm bald. Male pattern baldness is not normal in my family. This is from clock math, or commonly referred to as modulus math. We call it clock math because if you say something's going to happen 26 hours from now, you know that's next day, and about 2 hours in. You have a remainder, a whole number remainder. The modulus is the whole number remainder from a division calculation. A lot of times the symbol used is the percentage sign. And just a quick introduction to this kind of math. When we divide two integers, we'll have an equation that looks like this. A is divided by B. You're going to have a quotient, and then you're going to have a remainder. Okay? You have 24. You're going to divide 5 into it. Now, you're going to wind up with a quotient of 4, okay, because you can divide 5 into 24 4 times. You're going to have a remainder of 4 because that's what's left over after the division. You have the number 37. You're going to divide it by 6. Okay, it's going to go into 37 6 times, but you're going to have a remainder of 1. This is because of this, and because with these protocols, with these steps, we don't use the quotient. We use the remainder. Because of that, we could wind up with what we call one-way functions. Okay, a one-way function allows you to do math in one direction, but not the other. Think of that cake recipe. Okay, you take your eggs, crack them open, put them in the bottom of the bowl, pour in the mix, beat it, put some milk in, and such, toss it in the oven, and 20 minutes later, you have cake. Can you take that cake and reverse the process? Can you put it in the freezer for a period of time to try and remove the heat that you put in? And can you No, you can't. You can't. That's a one-way function. Because we use modulus math, our tools are one-way functions. And in this case, we are only interested in what the remainder is when we divide A by B. We don't worry about the quotient. We actually, for 99% of these calculations, we just toss the original quotient because we don't need it. For these cases, there's an operator called the modulo operator, abbreviated as mod. Using the same A, B, Q, and R as above, we'd have A mod B equals R. In other words, A divided by B gives us a remainder, a whole number remainder. Okay, we're not looking for fractions. We need the whole number. For example, 13 divided by 5 is 2, remainder 3. We toss the 2, toss that aside. We wind up with that 3. Now here's the fun part. All we want from that is the whole number remainder. As previously stated, the math involved is used in hashing, public key cryptography, and peer-to-peer protocols. Now, hash function is a mathematical function that converts a numerical input value into another compressed numerical value. What this is saying is that we can take the data inside of a file. We can run that through a series of steps mathematically. One or more of those would involve the modulus operator, and we can wind up with a result that is deterministic. In other words, if I start with the same data and run it through this series of steps, I will wind up with the same output every single time. If in your classroom, all students in the class wound up with the same problem, same data coming in, you did the work, everybody will wind up with the exact same answer. This is called being deterministic. A compressed numerical value means that the value that you get back, the number, the result of all these calculations, is going to be a set size. And that set size allows us to use our data to identify our functions, to uniquely identify things, such as files. We use something like this with passwords. You have a password for your computer, okay? You have a password canvas for the sake of discussion. So because you're an art student, you log in, CANVAS. That gets hashed and is then compared against a value that is stored on your computer. And if they match, then your computer will let you get to your account because you had to type in the same data as you did when you set that password. And this way, if someone goes in to the location where the password is stored, all they have is the hash. They cannot go backwards. The hash is a one-way function. They can't get the original password based on the hash. Okay, they have to have the regular password to match the hash before it goes any further. Quick example, just taking a data file with the word challenger, okay, 10 letters, and I hashed it. For those of you in math, this is using what's called MD5 hash, and this is the result, 86576F6. This is hexadecimal. So you have a base 16 number system, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F. And my result is this number, which is 32 characters, if I remember correctly. If I make one change, I take this challenger and I change this H to an I. That changes what's referred to as one bit of data. Most minor change you can make. But look at the difference in the hash. Originally 86576. Now with the spelling CIALLENGER, I get this. Just from that one change. So it makes very obvious changes between all of our codes and passwords. And again, we can't take the hash and reverse the process to get the original data because of that modulus. We threw away the quotient. So if we don't know the quotient, there's no way we can get to our original number. Along with hashing, we use public key cryptography. We use two mathematical keys. These are generated using prime numbers and certain math steps. Not going to get into that today because that goes back to that 2-semester-long course or a couple of courses. But we can set it up so that one key is necessary to encode, the other key is necessary to decode, and vice versa. If you use the other one to encode, the first one you use to decode. You cannot use the key that you use to encode a message and decode the message. This is what we refer to as public key cryptography, because now I can take that single public key, I can post it anywhere. Okay, I want people to have it because of the need I'm going to do with this. When you are dealing with Bitcoin, you're actually using a public key to an account created by a private key on your cell phone or your computer. And again, if I encode a message using my private key, it can only be decoded by my public key and vice versa. Now, how can this be used? You create a document. Now, you want everyone to know that you actually sent this thing out by hashing the message, and then you encode the hash with your private key. You're creating a digital signature. Okay? You can now post that message along with the encoded hash. Okay, now this hash already is a unique number. Think of it as like a fingerprint for a human being. It's a unique number for 99.9999999% of the files. And then you use your private key to encode it. You want people to be able to say, okay, did this really come from this person? Well, they take your public key, they decode that hash that was encoded, and they hash the message. And if the message hash that you just did to decode, to test, and the decoded hash match, then that verifies you as the person who sent it, or at least your computer sent it out. Okay, this is using your public key, or private key to generate a public key. Okay, so that we can confirm that message. This works in reverse. You want to do a bank transaction. They will send you, using the HTTPS protocol, a public key. Your transactions are encoded using the public key and are then sent over the internet. Anybody can see the message, but they're not going to be able to decode it, even though they have the public key, because the public key you can't use it to decode. But the bank, they sent you their public key. They have their private key, which nobody knows, and they can now see the transaction you want to do because of using the private key. So that's how we're able to communicate with some level of security on the net. And we use these same protocols, these same steps for Bitcoin trading, for identifying our message and confirming our messages. This is also tied in eventually into our tracking of sales using what's called the blockchain, places for data.
Well, I wanted to ask you, we definitely have to bring you back for part 2, but as far as we did get, what's your parting words for the students to know about Bitcoin? I know it's a hard question.
There's a lot. It's legal to use. Even for purchasing illegal stuff, it is considered a currency. And as long as the people you're doing business with agree it's a currency, you're okay, even though you're buying illegal stuff. It would be like, taking $20 and buying some of that green stuff we were talking about earlier. The money is legal. Using it for that purpose is not. Be careful about from whom you purchase Bitcoin. There are a number of different things on the web, especially, I hate to say YouTube, about how to purchase Bitcoin safely. Most people will take a transaction. Again, Bitcoin today is worth $17,000. If I wanted to buy a full Bitcoin, it would probably cost me closer to $17,500, $17,600, because there's a transaction fee that people will use so that you can have that money. Mm-hmm. That's all I can think of.
Thank you, Tim, for your fabulous presentation. Like I said, we're going to do part 2. And thank you, students and teachers, for joining us today. Again, on behalf of the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation, we appreciate your joining us today for this cybersecurity chat, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Have a good day. Thanks. Bye-bye. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.